Hello, Justice Minister Tyler Shandro, Deputy Commissioner Curtis Zablocki, and Chief of Police for Edmonton, Dale McFee, and Alberta's newest Premier, Danielle Smith, the Mayor of Edmonton, Amarjeet Sohi, and Mayor of St Albert Cathy Heron. I am coming at you from Edmonton, Alberta. And about a week ago, I came across a news article on our local news channel, right on Facebook, where a few police officers came up to an autistic child, a teenager, whose emotional standpoint is about 7 years old. A person who's pretty much nonverbal. I know what it's like to be autistic. I also know what it's like to be put in a position of feeling threatened by police. And it's scary to us autistics. Even to most neurodiverse people, hell, even to a lot of the disability community. We don't trust a lot of the authoritarian figures within the police force. Matter of fact, we're downright scared of you. It's not respect when you are afraid of police or emergency type people. You wonder why we don't talk to you? It's because of things like that come on the news where autistics are being basically abducted, thrown into confinement against their will, and of course they're going to do self-harm because they don't understand what's going on around them. I barely understand the system that's put in front of me that I have to navigate because some neurotypical made it, but yet it's supposed to be made for me. I can't say enough of the fear and the trepidation that comes across my whole entire being as a human, as a fellow human, when it comes to having to address certain situations or even just simply talking to you guys. It takes so much out of me to say, you scare me, you petrify me. And if one autistic says that, and she's verbal, a person like me, who usually has very little fear when it comes to talking to people, I'm afraid of you. Dale McFee, Chief of Police of Edmonton. I'm scared that one day I'm going to be out there having a meltdown and your guys don't understand me. I can't talk very well when I have a meltdown. A meltdown means that I can't process the surroundings around me. I cannot do what so many people can do and take for granted. But yet, you think it's quite okay to go and arrest a child who can't say his freaking name. Now, I put that story all over the autistic community, all over Canada. And all of them say that all of those that fall under you, I don't know if St. Albert falls under you, but Dale McFee, Mr. McFee, Chief of Police of Edmonton, your boys need to be trained a little bit better when it comes to empathy, understanding, when it comes to the vulnerable abilities for those people that are like me. Yeah, I look like an average human being that doesn't have a disability. But that's the thing. Autism doesn't have a look. It might if it happens to be someone that does rocking motions or make noises, but it depends on the complexity and how it affects the person that makes them that way. There could be comorbidities that make that person do certain things like stimming. Your boy scared the living daylights out of that poor child, and that poor child will be forever scarred because of your boys. I don't know how many times across Canada I come across things like this. And to hear it come across in my area? I thought Edmonton was better than that. I guess not. Because your boys still arrested a child of barely 16 with the emotional standpoint of 7 years old. Yes, I'm emotional. Because that's one of my people. He's autistic. I'm autistic. My husband's autistic. You scare us. That's not okay. You want us to be included in your community. Your actions say otherwise, or at least your boys' actions say otherwise. Danielle Smith, wake up and smell the roses. This is what UCP attitude brings to Alberta. The lack of care, the lack of empathy makes the whole entire disability community insecure and scared of their future. Mayor Amarjeet Sohi, this one's for you. You're the mayor of our freaking town. But yet, you choose to ignore the disability community, the vulnerable sector of your community, people that voted you in, people that you serve. But you ignore us? Why? This happened in your own freaking backyard. Right in St Albert, where police arrested a 16-year-old boy, barely 17 maybe, who cannot say his own name and he's autistic. How does that make you feel? Aren't you embarrassed? Do you care? This is repulsive behavior upon our police. Minister Justice Tyler Shandro, welcome to your new position. What can I say? You're UCP, just like Danielle Smith. You should be embarrassed that the police did this to a disabled person, to an autistic, who's going to be scarred for the rest of his life. His mental growth will be forever scarred. I should know, because I've had a lot happen to me as a child that made it so that I developed social anxiety disorder as I got older. The only difference between me and that kid is that I have the balls to actually say something. I'm not afraid to say what's in my heart. I'm not afraid to say what's in my mind. But I'm going to tell you straight up, I don't have a filter in me whatsoever. I was born without it. So expect me to be blunt. Expect me to be what normal people would call rude. Because I can't be what most people would try and expect me to be, or dance around the fucking truth. When the fucking truth is that police still have a problem with people with disabilities. They don't understand us. And they don't care to talk to us. If the person can't say their frickin' name, doesn't mean they're frickin' drunk. It could mean something as simple as a disability or an illness. I should know, I've been a caregiver long enough to see certain disabilities or certain illnesses make the person look drunk or unable to say their name. Maybe that person's autistic. Maybe that person has MS. Maybe that person has epilepsy. Maybe that person has diabetes. Are you going to arrest them because they can't say their name? That is an ongoing issue for the disabilities that have neurological cognitive disorders. That it can affect our speech, the way we think, the way we act, the way we do things. Hell, the way we learn. Did it ever dawn on you that that might happen? Dementia does the same thing. So does Alzheimer's. So does Parkinson's. Are you going to arrest them for not being able to say their name if they're found in a park? No, you're going to help them because they're a senior. You're going to help them into the nearest hospital or nursing home. You claim to want people of vulnerability to be a part of your community, but I don't see it happening. As long as police start arresting people for doing nothing wrong but playing on a set of swings just because they have a disability. Yeah, a teenage boy is going to look like a young man. You know what? Young boys are allowed to be at the fucking park. But it seems that young boys with autism, or young girls with autism, that look like full-grown women, aren't allowed to be at that park. Parks are supposed to be a public area for which anyone can go, whether it's a child or an adult. I know of lots of autistics my age that still like to go on the merry-go-round or the swings or the slide. I'm afraid of heights, so you won't find me on the slide or the swings or anything of that nature. But I like to walk through parks. Are you going to come and arrest me just because I'm going through a fucking park? I'm angry. I'm angry that this happened to one of my autistic peers, whether he's a child or an adult. I don't know how many times I turn around and I find out that there's been an autistic that has a run-in with a cop. And the cop simply arrests him because he can't do something. Or the lack of understanding that goes with having autism or ADHD or other neurodiverse issues or other disabilities. But no, it's completely okay to lock a poor kid up in his cell against his will, let him do self-harm, and then you take him to the nearest psych ward where he does more self-harm until his parents are called or have to put an APB out on a missing child or adult. But that's neither here nor there. In my books, you all owe Alberta a huge ass apology for this shit happening within your goddamn watch, within your own community, Dale. You're the captain. The captain goes down with the ship. Isn't that how the saying goes? Tyler Shandro, you owe the community a huge ass apology as well. Because you're the Minister of Justice. Where's the justice when a child of autism or an adult with autism, or any disability for that matter, is doing nothing wrong and they get arrested for no reason and taken against their will for no reason? Those two police people should be investigated, and they should lose their badge. They should lose their job. I'm one of few autistics that can say that she is somewhat privileged because of marriage. But that's all. There was a time I was on AISH. I work. Not all of us are on AISH. But yet you deem it quite nice that people like me have to starve on AISH, and you call that a livable income on $16.50 or $16.85, whatever it is. But yet average rent is about $15. And that's a slum divey place that you might find out in the middle of the roughest parts of Edmonton for a 2-bedroom. Average 2-bedroom, you're lucky if you're paying under $1,000. That subsidy went a long way for people that were on AISH or other subsidies. I have to survive off of my husband's income. That's barely enough for us to live on if prices don't rise and the rate of inflation doesn't rise, and his medical can take care of my medical needs. Yes, I have medical needs. I'm getting older. It's going to happen. But does the UCP see this? No, they would rather privatize everything, including bring in its own police force for Alberta and separate the rest of Alberta. I am fucking Canadian. My province is not for sale for any price. I am a proud Canadian. And this talk of separation, this talk of whatever does not fit my Canada. Danielle Smith, Tyler Shandro. Your ideologies are destroying Alberta. It's time to stop pretending to be little children in some sandbox not willing to share the toys. Only little kids. Do what you're doing by whining and crying that Ottawa is not being fair and whatever else. You know what? The people that should be crying blue bloody murder here are the ones that you mistreat. The disabled and the seniors. But do you give a flying hoot? No. Because to you, we're lucky to get what we get. Because if you had your way, I bet you anything you'd tear down social services along with any funded programs that actually go to helping people like me. It already happened once. Yeah, that's right, Danielle Smith. Your predecessor, Klein? Sure, they were just the conservatives back then when there was still Wild Rose and all that stuff. But I used to say this, when Klein came about, he destroyed everything that I needed in order to be self-sufficient. Now I have to rely on my husband. That's not fair. You take for granted the 6-figure income every single year. But people like me and my husband, whether they're neurotypical, or which means average person without a disability, or the neurodiverse community, or disabled, have to live off of whatever means they get. That's right. It's not fair. You can afford to live, we can't. How much more do families and single couples like me and my husband have to take before we give up? How much more does the autistic community or neurodiverse community have to take from police brutality before we give up? That kid was doing nothing wrong in that park except for being himself and playing as autistics do. Sure, he was alone. But you know what? Most autistics are alone because society deems us as odd, different. There is no inclusion if you have autism. And Dale McFee, you can change that if you chose to. By learning about me, learning about that poor kid. Maybe teaching a thing or two about empathy and understanding when it comes to the vulnerable parts of your community. Because quite often, if a kid cannot say his own name because he is nonverbal, chances are he might have a disability or an illness of some type that makes it so he can't. That means your police officers have to learn the difference between illness, disability, and a criminal. I keep on telling people there's no shame in being disabled or autistic or neurodiverse. But yet, things like this, arresting kids with autism, harassing adults who are different, paints a whole different picture than what I'm trying to show. How is it possible for people like me to show others that there's no shame in what they have, as long as the disability community is being harassed and treated like criminals just because they're different? Think about it. I can only do videos. I can talk to you in person until I'm blue in the face. But for me to write a letter, it's hard. So please, take to heart what I'm trying to say here. As an autistic fellow human being, trying to talk to you at your level, who doesn't have a filter and isn't afraid to say what's in her heart and what's in her mind. This arresting people for no reason just because the community decided that there's a man in some park that could be a threat because they're acting odd. Well, maybe they're acting odd because they have fucking autism. Thanks. Have a nice day.